I'm going to start the record. Okay, so I was talking about the M1 chips. So if you have a brand new Mac with an M1 chip, that is a chip that is made by Macintosh. And many applications are used to chips by other makers like Intel or whatever. So some applications, you have to actually tell the application run this like Intel, but it's a very easy way to do that. Okay. So if I have an application that's having trouble running, if I go to get info, if you look here, there's a little box that says open using Rosetta. Okay. If you are having issues with applications maybe not opening or not behaving properly on a brand new Mac, you may have to have that application open in Rosetta. So if you have an M1 and you're having issues, it's good to get info and to check and make sure the application is using Rosetta, which basically means that that application can use Mac's chip. Okay, now this is more about Macs than I think anybody thought they were going to learn today. So sorry about that, but it's usually a good thing to let people know some of those Mac issues. First, open up EndNote 20. It's going to ask you to select a reference library. So it's going to ask you if you haven't created one. I mean, if you've created one before, it's going to ask where that is. Normally that will work, that you can go up to File, Open Recent, and then open your EndNote, but for some reason it wasn't liking me using the screen sharing and doing that at the same time. But okay, so now this is an example of someone who has some references in an EndNote library already. So it's on all references. I only have 13 references. It has my groups. So I have organized some groups for particular topics, say diversity, project I'm doing for the MLC. I've named these groups. Some of these groups don't have anything. Some groups have stuff. So these are different groups. Some other things you'll see is the online search. Librarians actually don't really recommend that you use the online searches very often because it's a little bit like searching with multi-search, in that for these online searches to work, the terms that are searched are fairly generic. You always have much more powerful searching when you go to the database itself, and you can use that database's controlled language, its specific fields, its specific limiters. So we usually don't recommend searching from within EndNote. We tend to recommend searching and exporting to EndNote. So once you have references and you're sorting, you can just drag and drop things. So how did I get all this? Well, the groups is pretty easy. So if I just go to groups and create a group, then I can name it anything that I want. I can also create a group set. So a group set would be something like maybe review literature. So let's say that as I'm going to do a review, I want to get searches from several different databases. So I could simply add groups to this group set, and I could say, well, here's the things that I search for from Web of Science, or, I could list things by type or, by subtopics. So this is a really great organizational feature, and we typically recommend that you use groups to organize instead of multiple libraries. Although EndNote 20 will support multiple libraries, you just have to be careful with inserting items into Word documents when you have multiple libraries. So speaking of Word, let's go back to Word and go ahead and open that. You coming on? I just opened, just got to chat. Let me reshare as desktop. Sorry. Okay, can y'all see? Sorry. Can y'all see Word now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so when EndNote has been installed on your machine properly, you should have an EndNote 20 menu section. And this is how your word processing communicates with your EndNote program. So let's say I'm typing along, and I want to insert a citation. If I go to the insert citation, what's happening is that it's going to pull up my references list, the things that are already in my library. So I can do a search, bring up whatever it is I'm going to quote. So if I say to myself, oh, I need to use a citation on light therapies, and I can't remember the author, I should still be able to find what I want to cite. Or if I say, oh, it was Faulkner that I'm going to cite, I should be able to remember Faulkner and cite it. So you can search through. If you just click insert, it's going to insert a typical in-text citation and a reference list item or bibliography item. If you click on this little arrow on this side, it gives you options to insert that in-text citation with some information omitted. So for example, if you're going to use the author's name in your sentence, you may not need the author name within a parenthetical in-text citation. So you could exclude the author because you're going to type the author's name. So for this sample, I'm just going to insert a regular in-text citation. And actually, this is good. We have a COM error. Let me explain what has happened here. So EndNote is exceptionally particular. If you have used citation managers of other types, you have to make sure that they're cleared out before you start EndNote. So I'm going to go to the Word Tools menu and go to Templates and Add-ins. Often when there is a technical issue with Word, the solution is in Templates and Add-ins. So, this is like a little troubleshooting note to make here. Okay, see how it says Mendeley? I have used Mendeley before, and Mendeley also uses a little programmer script to talk with my word processor. EndNote cannot work if that Mendeley is there checked. Okay, so I need to absolutely uncheck that, or else I'm going to have errors in EndNote. So I'm actually glad that happened. Now I'm going to go ahead and close out this document completely, not save it, and just kind of restart that document. So everything should work now. And we'll go to EndNote 20. We'll insert a citation. We'll just insert anything. Okay, so this can be very distracting for some people that the references is right here, but it's right here because EndNote always inserts the reference citation at the end of whatever you're typing. So if you only have one page, it's going to be at the bottom of where you've stopped typing on that one page. So because that can be distracting, what I tell people to do is just go ahead and insert a page break. And then you're going to be working on typing your paper up here. And then you won't really see this as it adds in-text citations. So let me check chat and just see if anybody has had some questions or comments. Oh, sorry. Let me pause the sharing. Okay, so let's see. Sometimes I would have such a problem, for example, figure 2, John Doe, and I would like to remove the parentheses around the citation. How do I go about doing that? Okay. Let's say, let me share screen again and go to, okay, so let's say whenever there is something that you don't like, there are certain ways that you can edit and certain ways that you can't. So whenever you have an EndNote citation, you'll notice the EndNote citation is grayed out. Okay, so it's grayed out because it has its own tagging and its own sort of secret language behind there that allows you to do special things with it, like change the citation style on the fly. Okay, so that all is possible because there's all that secret markup tagging there. So that's why the EndNote text is different than the regular text. Unfortunately, that means that you can't just go into your gray highlighted EndNote text and change it. You can't just retype it. You need to either change things within the citation information, or you have to add information using the EndNote bar, or you have to strip out the coding and make it plain text. So there are 3 ways of handling that. So I'm going to see if I can show you some of those different ways. So if I go to configure bibliography, I can change the output style here. I can change the layout. So you notice that I had the bibliography title of references. If I wanted to change that to bibliography, I could do that here. I can change how the EndNote text is formatted. I can make it Times New Roman. I can change it to double spacing. You know, so there are certain things that I can change with the layout here and click OK. So then we go to the references and you can see those kinds of changes. Okay, so there are some kinds of changes that you can do there. You can also edit and manage your citations. So let's say I wanted to add things like page numbers or maybe some text that would go after a section, like in the page number place. I could add that here. You know, so if there was an additional note or something that your citation style allowed you to add, you know, you could add that there. So you could use that to make some physical changes. Another thing that sometimes people will do is that after they have a paper formatted exactly the way that they want it and they have their complete references list, what they'll do is they'll strip out the EndNote formatting so that they can move things around. So usually if you go to tools, you can like convert to plain text, and it will ask you to save a copy, because usually you want to have a copy that has that EndNote coding so that you can easily change styles. So you have like one copy that's something you can change on the fly, and then you have one that's just the text in the right format, but that can be moved around. So then, you know, you would usually save a copy and then name it. Okay, and then you would have a version where this is all regular text. And then at this point, you could move things around however you want because it's not affecting the EndNote tagging at all. So when you're working with complex things like a figure surrounded by text, and you kind of have to float particular positions, it may make more sense to kind of do all of the text of a paper and then strip out the EndNote coding and then move your things around so that your figures are in the right position and things are in the layout that you like. So that would be one way to handle it. Okay, so let me see. Let me check back. Okay, someone had to leave for class, but that's kind of a real super quick look at some of the features in Word. So I'm going to pause before I go to the databases. I'm just going to say, did anybody have any questions that they wanted to put in chat or address to me right now?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Sure.
What's the difference between EndNote 9 and 20? And do you have like a recommendation?
If you've got Catalina or Big Sur, I would say go ahead and go to EndNote 20. And I'm that's my preference because frankly, I find EndNote 20 fairly easy to use and I like the new layout, but I have some there are some other EndNote trainers who don't like EndNote 20 as much and prefer to stay on 9X. Personally, I have not had issues with EndNote 20 beyond the M1 chip stuff. Um, so, I mean, in terms of what's compatible, you can only use EndNote 20 with Catalina and Big Sur. So if you're a lower operating system, that's not even really an option. So it's kind of like, don't worry about it. So that's would
Thank
be
you.
the answer. Okay, and then I've noticed that someone said once you convert to plain text, you can't go back, right? That's correct. So that's why you definitely make multiple copies before you convert to plain text. So you'll have one copy that's marked up in EndNote style, and you can still change styles. You can still use all of the EndNote features in that copy that you saved. You know, so you have one copy that's the EndNote coding, and then one copy that you save that's, you know, you should have two. So one copy that you save that's a plain text. So you should have two copies of the same document. But once you strip out the coding and it's plain text, no, you can't really work with EndNote with it. I read somewhere that if you're in the middle of working on a project or paper, you shouldn't upgrade EndNote. I would agree. I would say that um, you never know what kinds of inconsistencies can crop up once you get into a lot of different variables of like, oh no, I'm moving from one machine to another. I've upgraded my operating system. I've upgraded my EndNote system. The more different variables you add into the equation, the more difficult it is to troubleshoot a problem and to know where the issue is. So I usually tell people, well, you know, if you're in the middle of something, just stick with the EndNote version that you have. There's not that much difference between 9X and 20 to me. I think that either one, you know, you would be fine. It's just with 9X, if you're on an older machine, you can you may get stuck. Like if you're on an older 32-bit machine, you can only go up to 9. You know, there's 9.1, 9.2, 9.3. Well, you know, you would not be able to go to 9.3, you know, on a 32-bit machine. So there's just limitations on what your particular Mac will handle. I see in the chat someone asked, does UGA provide free access to EndNote 20? Yes, very much yes. That definitely, please do not buy EndNote. Please never buy EndNote and always tell people that you know who are UGA affiliated not to buy EndNote because we provide it free. And I did talk to the folks in the bookstore at the end of last semester, and I asked if they could put like a little sign, you know, in the bookstore that, you know, EndNote is provided free to affiliated students. So someone asked, will I be able to access my free EndNote after I graduate? Well, EndNote has two parts to it. So it has the client-based part that lives on your laptop, and it has the EndNote web that's up in the cloud. So the EndNote web that's up in the cloud is just yours, and it's up there. So, if you went to another institution and they had free EndNote, and you downloaded their free EndNote and you had that older library in the cloud, you could always bring it down into that version of EndNote. To set up your EndNote online, go to your preferences to select the sync section. When you find sync, it will give you the option to either put in your EndNote credentials or to create an EndNote account. So you would hit sign up if you didn't already have one, and then follow through the screens to set that up. Once you're done, you'll just come back to your EndNote, make sure that your account credentials are there, and save. In terms of, will the client system that's on your laptop, will that continue to work? Yes. I mean, there's nothing in the programming that turns it off after you graduate. Like I know maybe some people have used Adobe products or used trial products. And so there were times where you'd get so many days or so many uses and it would stop. There's nothing like that with an EndNote client. The thing is, you just don't get the free update. So right now you can download 9X, and you can download EndNote 20 from us for free. If there were an EndNote 21 that came out, a couple months after you graduated, you wouldn't have access to it through us. But your EndNote 20 would still keep working. So I hope that answered those questions. Let me look at chat a little bit more. No. Okay. So that seems pretty good. All right. So we're at 10:30. Let me get into the databases, 10:34 actually. Let me show you how you send things into EndNote. So I'll do the sharing the screen again. And this time on the desktop, we're going to go. Oh, actually, before I do that, let me just share this link for like my notes. Search is a default. So this is a database that's searching dozens of databases at one time. So if I go to the advanced search. Okay, so I'm logged in. So let's say I'm going to do a search, testing or assessment is one concept, and then it's maybe going to be university students. Okay, I'd say only academic journal. Okay. So when I am in this session, I have a folder. And if you have signed up or allowed, EBSCO, it will create an individual folder for you. So I could mark up several items that I want to either save or send to EndNote. And it will ask me, do you want to put it in a particular group or just your general folder? So I can just say my general folder, and I can do that, and I can just continue to mark up several items. And so some of these things have text and some don't necessarily. That has a link, see, but not a PDF. So I've got some different items in my folder. So I can go up to my folder and I can send several to EndNote at one time. So I can select my items, I can export them. And it will say save, and it'll say remove these items from folder after saving. So if you don't want to, like if you're going to search, send a few items, search, send some more, then yes, you probably want to remove them. If you want to save things to a folder and keep them there, then you don't want to check that. So the default should be direct export in RIS format, and that's going to work best for EndNote. You generally aren't going to export to EndNote web unless there's a special situation. So I'm going to click save, which is actually a delivery method. One thing that's nice about Firefox is then it's going to ask you, what should I do with this file? So you can say, I want you to use a particular application, and that particular application is going to be EndNote 20. Okay, so now I have imported the 4 references at one time. I can also do something where I can import a whole enormous search set. So now this is this is too big, but I'm going to make a smaller search set by narrowing. Okay, so I've got these thousands of records. If I go to share in the EBSCO databases, one of the options is email a link to download exported results, and it'll tell you up to, and then it'll be the number of items in your results list. Okay, then you click that link, you put in your email address. Okay, now it's very important to make sure that you hit the right format, because even though RIS format is the default when you're sending 1 or 2 at a time or sending from the folder, when you're emailing, it's going to default to XML, which you don't want. So you want RIS. And then you would click send, and then it's going to send you an email that you retrieve, and then you can download this big set. Now, not every database is going to do that, and every database will look a little different. And if we have time, we may look at another database, but I'm going to stop for a sec. Okay, let me check for any questions or comments in chat or from y'all. See. Okay, so the sending to EndNote part, it's really pretty simple, I think. So I think most people really tend not to have too many problems with that, unless it's the browser not knowing what to do with that RIS file. And, I like being able to tell Firefox, hey, you're going to use this application with it all the time. So that's one reason. So let's go back to sharing. And I should note, you can see it's taking a little while for it to authenticate. One thing that you should know is that we are changing the way that we authenticate our databases here at UGA Libraries. So we're changing, and that will sometimes affect things like find full text. Now, since this is taking a long time, I'm going to go ahead and skip and just show you find full text, because it seems like a logical place to start. So sometimes when things come in and they don't have a PDF attachment, you want EndNote to try and find that full text for you. So you highlight what you want it to try and find, and then you go to the references menu and you go to find full text. It will ask you to authenticate first. I am using a workaround address, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. But basically, I'm wanting to go to the University of Georgia. And then I get the single sign-on. Okay, so then I see University of Georgia here and I click continue. So then it should be authenticated. So then it should start searching for full text. So if you look down here, it's searching. And if it finds a PDF, it's going to put this little paperclip symbol to let you know it's brought that PDF in. If it doesn't find the PDF, that's going to put it in not found, and then you have to attach the PDF. And what some people will find very frustrating is sometimes you'll have seen that, hey, wait a minute, that item has a PDF, but EndNote couldn't see it. And what allows EndNote to see full text PDF items and bring them in is like the coding that's in the PDF and that the database is put on it. So a lot of that is a bit out of EndNote's control and it can vary greatly. So this is actually fairly normal that you don't always find full text, even if you know it's there. So you can sort of fix that by attaching a PDF. So what you can do is go to your results list, like here, there's a link to that particular record. So I can go back, and in this case, like, oh, wait, here's the PDF. So I can open this PDF and I can download it. So it should be in my downloads. And then I can go back to EndNote and I can attach this. So you can either right click or you can go to the references menu and you can attach your file. So then I can look for my downloads. Okay, so let's just go ahead and attach a document just so we can see it. And then usually you can just hit Command S to save it, or you can click away and then it'll prompt you, do you want to save the records before leaving away? And you can click save, and then the file should be attached and you should see the paper clip. Okay. So you can definitely find things that way. You find things better if you can set your preferences. So you go to your find full text and you want to find the open URL path and the authentication links for UGA libraries. So where do those things live? Those things live on our website, the citation management page, and there's a using EndNote button. And this is getting full text from EndNote. This is like what you can use. Because we are in the process of moving our authentication servers, to be honest, you may have issues with authentication for the next month. And right now, this is supposed to be the authentication server that we're using now, but there's also a workaround server here. So if one doesn't work, you can try using the other to authenticate. So you saw me go through that authentication process. So hopefully that gives you an idea of, that process. If you can't go through that process and get to University of Georgia, then you would want to try the other link. But the truth is we are going to have authentication issues for probably the next month. So that's something to be aware of. Let me go ahead and stop share. Okay. So we're running out of time here. I want to see if folks have some final questions or if there's maybe something I didn't cover that you'd like to get in real quick.
I
Okay,
have a quick question.
sure.
So I downloaded EndNote and everything onto my computer and followed directions that I was given to connect EndNote to like UGA's databases and libraries, but it never seemed to actually connect. And so anytime that I try to do find full text, it never does because it's like that connection just never quite happened. I don't know how to I think I went to like preferences or trying to look I think yeah, I don't know, or something in one in note, and it just never seemed to allow me, yeah, it was preferences. It never seemed to allow me to save the URLs that I wanted to use. I have the Galileo and everything in the URL boxes and preferences, but it's like it never allowed me to save it.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Usually it won't allow you to save it if the URL is in a format that's incorrect. So it
Okay.
would be something like if you had HTTP instead of HTTP, that's
Oh,
usually when it won't save it, that there's an error in the HTTP syntax. That's usually why. All I can do is let's go back to share screen and I can show you my preferences again. So let's
okay.
go
Because
back.
I think what I used was copied and pasted, and so I don't know.
This is what I'm using right now. Okay, so
Okay.
if we, so this Galileo USG welcome, welcome. I believe this is the workaround link. So let's go back to Firefox.
And
Yeah, so welcome.
okay.
Yeah, so what I would suggest is it could be HTTP. Yeah,
So those are the 2 links that I used, and it still wouldn't let me. So I should use that one that you're highlighting now?
yeah, so this one would go in the authenticate.
Okay.
This one would stay in that open URL path. So if
Okay.
we go back to EndNote and we go back to the preferences, this open URL path, this is a different thing than authenticate with. So the
Okay.
authenticate with, you've got two options, either
I see.
this one or this one. And right now I'm using this one successfully. I will
Uh-huh.
be honest, I could not use this one last week.
Oh,
This week
okay.
this week, I'm using the welcome one. Last week, I was using this one. This one seemed to stop working. I put this one on. So the problem is we're gonna have erratic authentication probably for the next month. I
Okay.
I
That's fine. And that's good to know. Would you be able to put that workaround link into the text box?
oh, sure, yeah, and then, this citation management page, I'll put in the text box. It should also be linked, I think, in that, Google slide link, but let me
Okay.
also put, the specific welcome workaround link.
Okay. That was the main issue I was having, and so if that works, that'll be very, very helpful. Thank you so much for going through that.
No problem, and, I hate that we are having all of these kind of background issues, and I hate that it is a bit more complex sometimes with the Macs right now, just because there are so many, Mac changes happening at the same time. So you've got the 32-bit Macs, you've got the 64-bit Macs, you've got the M1 Macs, you've got the ones before M1, You've got, EndNote 20, you've got EndNote 9X, you've got these different OS versions. And it's just right now, there's a lot of different possibilities and changes. Plus, because here at UGA, we are changing our authentication server. We're not 100%. Like, what that means is we're not 100%, all of our databases are on the same authentication server. So some are on the old server, some are on the new server, and that is also going to affect your find full text options. So let's say
Oh,
some of them are on the welcome workaround server, and some aren't. So you're not going to find the ones that aren't. So, sorry. So yeah, it's going to be a little up in the air for a bit, but I feel that probably within a month, I think we're going to get where everything will be a bit more stable.
that's
Any
good
more
to know.
questions?
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so just to clarify, the link that was the docs link in the chat goes to just this little set of slides. And so one thing I talked about at the beginning that some of you may have missed and also probably got chopped off of the recording because I didn't hit the button is just some best practices for Macs. A lot of people don't know that you want to make sure that you clear your sleep memory by restarting. You want to make sure you're using an optimal browser. You want to quit applications and instead of just close windows, and be aware of these different issues. We talked a little bit about the different database issues with authentication. And I just want to reiterate that we've got a couple different opportunities for training. So you can find some information and videos on our guide. That's the UGA Citation Management Guide, but you can also go directly to the Clarivate guide, and that's going to look like this. And you can watch their video tutorials, and you can also sign up for webinars and live training directly from Clarivate. And so sometimes they get into extremely, advanced options with EndNote. So that can be valuable if you really want a deep dive into EndNote. Okay. Let me check. Okay, it looks like we don't have any more questions. So I'll consider my presentation ended. So if anyone needs to jump out to get to something at 11, please do. If anyone would like to hang around for a few minutes over the time, I can stay on and take some questions, more questions or individual items. So thank you very much.
So if we happen to run into more issues, moving forward, are you the best person to reach out to with EndNote questions?
I'm probably the best person for EndNote for Mac. I'm not necessarily always the best person for every EndNote issue, but I just put my name and my email in the chat. So it's Sandra Riggs, sriggs@uga.edu.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So again, I'll just stick around if anyone has an individual question they want to ask real quick. Okay, so is it possible to get citation information by importing a PDF file? Yes, it is. And I'm sorry that we didn't really have time to cover that because I talked so much about specific Mac issues. That is a feature of EndNote that does come up sometimes in presentations. So yes, so how much information comes into EndNote when you import a PDF file? depends a lot on the PDF file and the database you got that file from. So for example, if you were importing like an old JSTOR PDF that, was from, the 1800s that they scanned, 2 years ago, 10 years ago or something, it may not have sufficient markup or tagging on it that EndNote's going to recognize much more than a title for that PDF. But if you're importing a very new PDF that is coming from a well-known journal publisher and a big database like a ProQuest or an EBSCO database, it's very likely that there'll be enough coding on the PDF that EndNote will be able to bring in more information like the author, the title, maybe the name of the journal, the year. It's probably not going to bring in complex things like an abstract or stuff like that. But if you can stick around another couple minutes, I can go into EndNote and we can demo that. All right, so what we want to do is when we are in EndNote, we're going to File, we're going to Import, and we're going to see we have different options on what it is we're going to import. So it's very important to hit the options, and then it's going to specify what is it that you're going to import. So let's say that you had a folder with 100 PDFs and you wanted to try to bring all of those in. You could either bring in that whole folder as a group set or as a folder on its own. If you have just one PDF, then you have to select file or folder. So this first one. So then it'll ask if you were importing a group of PDFs, it would ask, do I import everything, even if there are duplicates? And so you can say whether or not to discard them or not. Usually I just say import all and then use EndNote to discard duplicates later. And usually I don't have any text translation. So then let's see, I do not. Okay, here's an article, Preparing to be Culturally Responsive PDF. So I'm going to import this and see if it contains any kind of tagging that will help him EndNote to give it more information. So I'm just going to import it. And all it did was the title, of the file name. So there's nothing here. So unfortunately for this particular PDF, I would have to go to edit and I'd just have to fill that out manually. We could try it again with bringing in a PDF from a database search and it might do more, but that's the process of how you do it. Okay, you're very welcome. Anything else? Okay, great. I'm glad I was able to help. So you have a good day. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.